Hi, one of the other movies that I watched recently to catch up on things this year is Enys Men, Mark Jenkin's new film about a woman alone on an island off the coast of Cornwall. The title itself is Cornish for Stone Island, and the woman, who we never find out her name, is there sometime in the early 1970s monitoring the growth of some rare plants on a cliff face. She is completely alone on the island, living in an isolated cottage, which is powered only by a diesel generator. And every day she goes to look at the plant, makes notes of it, and then spends the rest of her time in isolation on the island, reading books and listening to music on the radio. However, elements start to bleed in from outside. She has maybe visions, maybe hallucinations, dreams, or ghostly apparitions of a young woman, of an old man reading a Bible outside, and visitations or perhaps memories of the fisherman who runs the regular supply boat to the island. The film is extremely difficult to describe in words. Jenkin is an extremely visual filmmaker, intensely focused on the editing and the visual structure of the film. So there's generally very little dialogue, but the power of the editing, the mixing of images, particularly those of a standing stone at the center of the island that has some kind of elemental power, it is suggested. Uh, Everything is, I think, pointed towards the film's editing. It it shows how I think the mind makes connections by having these sequences of apparently disconnected images, but then focusing on how the main character is piecing them together into some kind of internal uh, psychological narrative. Um, it's shot, I believe, on 16 millimeter film, so the colors are very bright and saturated, but it looks old. It looks like it's filmed in the time that it's set. Notably, the film ends on the 30th of April 1973, which is the date that the Wicker Man is set fire in that film. And there are key texts, I think, that the film is referencing, and particularly, I think, The Wicker Man, Don't Look Now, the classic double bill. Um, the Wicker Man, in fact, being inspired by a novel that was set in Cornwall rather than Scotland. And it's it's a work of, I think, real directing virtuosity. Jenkins' script is relatively sparse. There's very little dialogue. There are visual cues throughout that um, lead the audience to psychologically and mentally connect together what's happening. We're never given proper explanations. We have to work it out for ourselves. So it feels very much like a David Lynch film, perhaps, but with that uh, with that sense of dreamlike logic and disconnection and dread, but also something very specific to Cornwall and Cornish culture. There are apparently tin miners in the mines under the island. Um, it's a very regional story. I said about past lives before that it was too specific for me to engage with, and I think strangely with Ennis Men, it's capturing archetypes that make it easier for people to grab onto it. The idea of standing stones, of the power of nature, of history and present overlapping. I think these are more archetypal ideas, more universal than the culture clash of past lives. I really liked this. I found it to be a very unnerving and um, cleverly assembled film. It's I think proof that a film is really made in the editing because of how Jenkin connects together his sounds and his images. It's has a certain foreboding to it, a menace, but it's the menace of an empty space, of this windswept island in the middle of nowhere, and the one or more people who inhabit it. It's currently available to rent, I think, from the usual digital outlets. You can watch it on the BFI player. It's available on disc. It's very good. It's one of the best of this year, and this year has been particularly strong on horror movies. And with Ennis Men, Jenkin has shown himself to be a unique and highly original voice.